Hey there, midlife mamas. Welcome to the Healthy Lifestyle Habits podcast just for midlife mamas. Because let's be real, this midlife chapter is no joke. Our bodies are different, our minds are different, our hormones are different, and we're trying to figure out who we are after momming for all these years. This empty nest phase is an eye-opener for sure. What worked for us in our younger years is no longer serving us because we have so much life experience, and that's okay. This is a supportive space guiding you through those powerful 1% shifts to help you grow. As we know, health is not a one-size-fits-all, so each week you will learn about different topics, taking away tools and tips to implement. This season, we're going to tackle some of the biggest midlife questions that y'all have had about wellness in this chapter. We're going to be chatting about what is holding us back, where do we find joy, how do we prioritize ourselves through self-care. We're always going to be talking about ingredients, daily toxins, food swaps, breath work, and mindset, just to name a few. There's nothing better than feeling empowered to create the best next chapter. Am I right? After each episode, I hope you feel more equipped and at ease to take a step or two that will allow you to thrive. Whether you're a newbie or an OG listener, I am so glad that you're here. Let's embrace this new chapter and thrive together. Are you ready for all the possibilities? If you said yes, say, I am ready. Hey y'all, today we're going to be chatting with Kristi Tompkins, who's a naturopathic doctor, a functional medicine practitioner, and who is passionate for holistic health. With nearly 16 years of experience, Kristi blends her personal health journey with extensive professional expertise to guide women through transformative healing. She holds a doctorate in naturopathic medicine and a Bachelor of Science in dietetics and food science. Her approach integrates nature's wisdom with the cutting edge of functional medicine, emphasizing the sacredness of women's bodies and the power of personalized care. She also hosts a podcast, Fire, Soul, and Grace, where she explores profound topics in wellness. When she's not working, Kristi enjoys cooking, exploring farmers markets, staying active, and connecting with nature. Today in our conversation, we're going to be diving deep into perimenopause and Kristi's journey, which is something that I think we can all take a little bit of something away from. So let's meet Kristi. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited today. I have on Kristi Tompkins, and I just know you guys are really going to get a lot from this conversation. She's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to female hormones, but she's also really into the mind-body connection. So I kind of want to get into the conversation because I know we're going to take it all around different places, and I think it's going to be exciting. So welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Robin. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to start by giving the listeners just your background from you, not just what I talked about before the show, but just how did you get where you are today? What kind of led you down this path?
Wow, a lot of different journeys. So my original training, my undergrad is in nutrition. So I love, to this day, I still love to talk about food and nourishment and food as medicine. That was my original roots. And that several years later led me down the path of pursuing naturopathic medicine, going a little bit deeper into understanding more about the body besides just what we put into our bodies. And so more about plant medicine, botanical medicine, homeopathy, and getting to the root cause. Looking at all the different body systems to figure out why somebody might be having symptoms. So there's a lot of science in naturopathic medicine. So a lot of the, they call it basic sciences, but it's not basic. So a lot of like anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. But there's a lot of the clinical sciences and a lot of naturopathic medicine influence in the program that I studied. So how to treat the body besides through medications, besides through surgery, besides the conventional mainstream route. So a lot of different possibilities, looking at the person as a person, as an individual human being, and looking at what that person needs. And some person might need a bit more botanical support or a bit more hands-on therapy. Some people just might need some stress management lifestyle protocols to help them get through whatever is stressing their body, maybe better sleep, and maybe cutting out certain habits or cutting out certain foods and so forth. So I've been immersed in naturopathic medicine. I'm going to use the term functional medicine and naturopathic medicine interchangeably because they're very similar. One just has functional medicine's more of a modern term, very commonly used today, but it's very similar to the roots of naturopathic medicine. So I worked at a clinic after I graduated, after I passed my boards. I worked at a clinic just outside of Seattle, Washington. And this clinic was very much an integrative, multidisciplinary clinic that had several different doctors, MDs, naturopathic doctors. We had an acupuncturist on site, a nutritionist. And the doctor that I studied with or mentored under, he was really big into anti-aging, bioidentical hormones for men and for women. My particular niche really became strengthened with perimenopause and menopausal women. And so right out of the gate, I learned a lot about how to test women going through hormone changes, not just hormone testing, but all different types of testing as well. So I learned how to help women going through hormonal changes in their late 30s, 40s, 50s. And then, of course, once the period stops for 12 months, then a woman is menopausal. So I learned from a nutritional botanical perspective, but also how to prescribe compounded bioidentical hormones to help alleviate a lot of the symptoms, the physical symptoms, the emotional, psychological symptoms that accompany a lot of women going through hormone changes. So I've been doing this now for probably about the last 15, 16 years, and have really refined and crafted that ability to be able to help women. And one of the things of course, this kind of brings me back to my roots of naturopathic medicine, is going back to each person or each woman, and that she really is going to need different things than the next woman, even if they're the same age and even if they're going through hormone changes at the same time and they present with a lot of similar symptoms. It really comes down to her individual body and her individual being and what works for her, that's going to get her to that point where she's feeling better. So there are some similarities, but it's never a one size fits all. That's with any kind of treatment approach to anybody, but specifically when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, it really is about what works best for her body.
Can I pause for 1 second? Because there's so much good stuff. I just want to kind of revisit and kind of bring some things to light. First of all, I love your training. I love your background. I love how you didn't just stay with one thing. I love how you kind of opened yourself up for the twists and the turns and the adventure part that really is part of the journey that gets you to where you're supposed to be and most comfortable. And obviously you've been crafting this particular thing for a long time. But, you know, what I love that you just said is there's no two people that are alike. And that's one thing that I really talk about a lot is we're all bioidentical, or excuse me, all bio-individual. We're not bioidentical, we're bio-individual. And, you know, we have to take into consideration not just maybe what the hormone is doing, but what's your lifestyle? What is your relationships? What are the things that are feeding you off of that plate or outside of the body? Because I think so much of that matters. And I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that mind-body connection piece is part of your, crafting and a niche that you've brought into it because it's so important. I do want to go back and visit because there are some people that have their own thoughts and beliefs around bioidentical hormones. I will say from my personal experience, I did try it. I'm not opposed to it, but my body's super sensitive. And the two people that I actually had an encounter with didn't do it slow enough. And so I had some, I guess, repercussions or whatever you want to call it, like just some reactions. Thank you. And so I've stepped back, but I'm not opposed to it. But I know a lot of people have such worry about it around it because of the original, synthetic, versus the bioidentical. And so if you could just explain just a little bit about actually what bioidentical means, it might help people to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the word bioidentical, I think there are different terms for it. So whether it's biosimilar or I think biomimetic might be another word too. So the bioidentical hormones come from plants. And so there are plant sterols like the soy plant, the wild yam root plant. And this is for estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone and DHEA, where you can extract the components. I'm not going to get too far into the science biochemistry of this or chemistry of this, but the components within the plants are sent to pharmacies, and not just compounding pharmacies, but regular retail pharmacies are also making bioidentical hormones in a certain form so that they can patent it and sell it on the retail side. So the hormones are not exactly like our own internal endogenous hormones, but they're very, very, very similar, almost identical. So it really should be nearly identical hormones that can help support the body in alleviating some of the symptoms. So kind of going back to the training that I had with this particular clinic, I learned how to prescribe hormones for women, and a lot of that helped. But what I realized, in fact, I was just actually thinking about this recently, is that I was prescribing a dose for women that might have been higher than what their body was comfortable. For some women, it worked beautifully. For some women, it caused reactions because it was a higher dose. And so that's one of the things that I've learned over the years and just, the clinical practice is that women don't need very much. They don't need, well, they don't need a whole lot of things in general, but they don't need a lot of bioidentical hormones. And so perhaps what you were given either wasn't the right dose or it wasn't the right form, or just simply it wasn't a good fit for you. And that's okay. And that's one of the things that I've come to understand over the years, is that it may not be one thing over the other. It might be nutritional support, botanical support, lifestyle support, and maybe just a touch of hormones. And that's one of the things that I practice today, is that a little goes a long way. And it might just be a very, very small dose. It might be just a few days a week. And I've really learned that more hormones doesn't necessarily mean it's better. In fact, a lot of times it can cause adverse reactions and side effects. And so whether it's, weight gain, which no woman wants to gain weight, especially if she wants to lose weight, or acne breakouts or facial hair, or maybe she's getting her breast size increases from too much progesterone, or maybe she's now getting heavier bleeding or her period has come back. So there's a lot of potential kind of red flags to watch out for. And that's one of the things I've learned over the years, is that less is more. And I typically do a variety of things. I can present the information to my clients and say, well, if I prescribe a really, really low dose of estrogen cream, this might help with the vaginal dryness. This might help with your hot flashes. This might help you sleep at night. This might help you stabilize your mood. And whether it's a combination of estrogen and progesterone and or testosterone, I always ask her, I mean, I'm not going to just assume she wants to use hormones, but are you open to the possibility of maybe alleviating some of these symptoms with a really small dose of hormones? We'll try this for 30 days, maybe 60 days. If it doesn't work, we basically put this aside and we try something else. And I would say most women are open to the idea, unless there's an adamant reason, a personal history of cancer, a family history. That's a whole other topic as well, because cancer is not just about hormones. It's about many, many other things too. So I always bring it back to her. What would you like to do? Would you like to do a combination? And I would say more often than not, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how you're open to not just one size fits all, because it truly isn't that in anything that we go through in life, really. So I also love that, you have an understanding that less is more, because I think some people don't get that. And I think that's kind of, again, in all aspects of life, sometimes less is more. The less we think about things, the less, the quieter we get, the more we listen and just get in tune and all of that. So I do want to talk a little bit about the mind body connection when we're talking about, all this female stuff that goes on in midlife. So I think for many years we've sort of ignored our bodies. and definitely our minds, because we've been in the rat race of who knows what. It could have been bearing children. It could have been working and having children. It could have, there's all different reasons. And so I think when we get to this stage, for a lot of variety of reasons, we start to get an understanding that, our body is wise, right? And it does talk to us. And with all people talking about it out loud more and more, I think we're getting more comfortable with this idea. So I would love to hear your take on the mind-body connection for females when it comes to sort of midlife hormonal stuff that's going on.
Yeah, or just midlife in general.
Yeah, exactly. Midlife.
Yeah. So with as part of our biology, women obviously go through perimenopause because our periods are supposed to stop. We're not supposed to bear children in our 70s and 80s. So there's a reason for this. And as I mentioned earlier, with that, there's a lot of symptoms. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's kind of a bummer when you really think about it.
Right.
Men, they also have hormonal decline, andropause, but it's not quite the dramatic nature that it can be for some women. So with that said, there's a lot of mood changes and sleep changes and metabolic changes and lots of other changes that accompany these hormones dropping. And then you add in stress, and stress can actually come from the body going through changes. So just simply progesterone dropping or estrogen dropping can be a stressor to the body. But it can also be, just normal life stress, our job, our kids, our aging parents, our whatever financial stress, whatever other stressors, there's an infinite amount that is going to oftentimes make perimenopause, menopausal symptoms worse. And so we know stress can affect our body adversely in so many ways, but then you add in hormone changes and then you add in stress, cortisol, adrenaline to that piece. It's like the perfect storm. It just exacerbates it even further. So if you're already having trouble sleeping and you're stressed, that makes it worse. If you're already having hot flashes, or night sweats or temperature fluctuations because of perimenopause, menopause, and you're stressed, that's going to make it worse. If you're already struggling with low libido or sex drive with your partner because of perimenopause, postmenopause, and then you add stress, that just makes it worse. So it always it's like putting gasoline onto the fire. It just makes it worse. And again, everybody's different in how they adapt and cope with stress, right? Everybody has their own threshold, so to speak. And some people might be able to handle quite a bit more. And other women might need a lot more support during stressful times, or a lot more coping strategies. And so with mind-body medicine, again, that's a very general term. You can integrate practices like meditation, breath work, guided imagery, mental rehearsal. There's different terms for it, but you can integrate these pieces into your, maybe it's a yoga class. And whether it's a yoga class at a studio, you can certainly do yoga. I mean, these days, since the pandemic, and actually well before the pandemic, you can do yoga at home through YouTube workouts, and you can do a lot of these practices, sound therapy. I'm a big believer in music and sound therapy, just simply using your headphones or listening to, a Bose speaker at home. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to help calm the nervous system and calm that sympathetic nervous system that we need both. We need the parasympathetic and the sympathetic at all times. It's a dance. But sometimes when we're in overdrive and we're overly stressed, that sympathetic nervous system is on, the switch is on too long. And so bringing your body back down to that harmonious balance, that dance where you're not releasing as much stress hormones. You are more in that rest, digest, repair state of the parasympathetic nervous system. Then the cortisol goes down, and then the body can get back into a better state of balance and homeostasis. That's not to say that perimenopause is going to be reversed, but at least it manages those symptoms much better. So it's a beautiful piece to integrate into your life, in addition to the healthy diet, whatever exercise you like to do. And I'm a huge believer in exercise, whether it's yoga, a walk, a muscle strengthening class, something like that, whatever, biking, Peloton, whatever it is you like to do, swimming, that is something that can also help alleviate the symptoms too. But when you combine that with a mind body healing practice, most days, that's just going to help you that much further, and that much deeper during this transitional phase of perimenopause.
Amazing. And so I wanted to revisit the stress, because we talk, and I think it's a lot in the mainstream now when we talk about fight or flight, we talk about, not getting back into the rest and digest and, the parasympathetic. But there was an incident the other night where we live in a neighborhood that has bears. And so my daughter and her friend were like, do you think it would be okay for us to take a walk? And I was like, I don't know. I said, I haven't seen one in a couple of weeks. And I just said, keep your phone, if not expecting that I would get a call. Right. And so they call me and they're like running. And I was like, well, first of all, stop running. And they're like, we see it, right? So they're running. So I jump in the car and I go get them, and they get in the car and they're like way up here, because their adrenaline kicked in and they just ran. Right. And then they realized how far they ran so fast, And so we were having that conversation. I'm like, you guys just really experienced the true fight or flight, but just imagine if your body lived like that all day, every day, with all little types of stressors. Your body, you're not hungry right now, right? You're literally like buzzing because it was just such an interesting, and because we always talk about that, the bear's chasing you, but it's like to actually experience the bear was not chasing them, but they were running from the bear. It's like it for her, it was like, wow, actually that is terrible. Like people live like that. But it is so true that people do not have good tools, good coping techniques. We all have stress. You cannot get rid of stress. There was this once years ago, how stress will kill you, get out of stress, all this. It's like, in reality, you cannot get out of stress. Like, there are stressors every single day, but it's how you deal with the stress, the tools that you have to cope with that stress, and how you do have the ability, and we should all feel empowered that we do, to, when you feel yourself get triggered and go up, to be able to use some of those tools to bring yourself back down. And the more you can do that, the better your body will respond over time. And then you won't be so stuck, and then your hormones will kind of level out. And I think that's really important just to mention, because, like you had talked about before, a lot of this stuff is coming into the mainstream, but it's so overwhelming because there's such an abundance of information. And then it's like, then where do you start and what do you do? And everybody's looking for someone to tell them exactly what to do. And what I love about what you said is there isn't just an exact science as to what to do. There are little pieces and parts, and maybe how you deal with stress, because you've been doing this a long time, you're able to come out of that, trigger really quick, where it might take me a couple of minutes. And one of the things this year that I've implemented myself was the word pause. And so I know when there is something that gets me, I'm like, okay, you have permission to pause, take those deep breaths, do what you know. And I will tell you that it has, it's only been, I think we're in week 3 of January. It's saving me. Because I just have it, I'm more intentional about it. And so these practices that we can teach other people come full circle. So if you're struggling with menopause, if you're struggling with this midlife fury of our body, kicking all around and not knowing what to do with itself, because we are going through the changes, these things do matter, and so I want to talk about movement, because sometimes people have that pushback of, I hate the gym. I can't afford to go to the gym. I didn't grow up exercising. I don't like it. And so I would love to know your take, because mine is always, what did you used to do for fun when you were little? Because exercise isn't supposed to be grueling and brutal, and you are supposed to enjoy it. Now, in our age, yes, we do need to have a little resistance training, but you can always make that fun. It doesn't have to be a dreaded, and that's a mindset shift too. And that's understanding the mind-body connection in that piece. So could you speak a little bit about movement and why it's so good for especially this time in our life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for a million reasons, I don't want to get into all there's so many.
Just pick one or two that you like.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been a practice for me personally. I wasn't somebody, I mean, yes, I was active as a kid and I loved to swim. Do I swim that often now? No, but when I do, oh my God, I love it. It's almost like, oh, I remember this. It tends to not be my main form of exercise. Somewhere along the way, I actually used to be a runner many, many years ago. And so I was a runner for several years until I got multiple, knee injuries and feet injuries, and my shoulder started hurting. And I was like, I think I was only 20 at the time. And I thought, this is really brutal on the body. I can't continue this. This is not sustainable. And so, kind of serendipitously, I stumbled across this old VHS exercise video. I think it was the Reebok series. Remember the Reebok?
Yeah.
I got really into that. And that kind of shifted, that kind of turned something on for me. And so over the years, I got really into definitely more cardio, a little bit of the weights. And it wasn't until I actually did join a gym, because I was one of those people. And I guess
Mhm.
what I'm getting at is you can always change, you can always find something new. We're always growing and evolving and developing and expanding. And so maybe what you did 20 years ago, if you want to get back into that again, by all means, but just be open to the possibility of there's other types of exercise that you may find that you fall in love with. So I actually really like the muscle strengthening because I like how I feel. Maybe not so much always in the moment, and I don't always have the energy or the time for it, but I like how I feel when I'm done, and I like the long-term effects. And so kind of going back to the whole muscle strengthening resistance training, for a lot of women, for most people, when you're younger, you can usually get away, assuming there's not a metabolic thyroid condition or a blood sugar condition, you can usually get away with eating more food, you can get away with not exercising very much, and you can burn it off pretty quickly. Things do change. It's not just a myth. Things do change after the age of 40, 45, and as women approach 50, metabolically things do shift. Hormones drop, those reproductive sex steroid hormones, they drop, thyroid dips a bit, cortisol can be kind of erratic around that point. And then if you add in a sedentary lifestyle or other types of factors as well, sugar cravings, and all of a sudden the body now is holding on to more fat or storing more fat, and your body isn't able to burn through that. And so with the resistance training, the muscle strengthening, and again, that could be just using your own body. You don't have to use weight. You don't need to go to an Orange Theory class or a CrossFit class. Again, you have to do something that you genuinely like, because if you don't like it, you're not going to stick with it. Like me with the running. I hate running to this day. Like I
Right.
can't believe I ever even did that so many years ago. And so for me, I like the resistance training because I like the results. And so with women that are storing more fat and they are not building as much muscle, the resistance training is not just about having strong muscles and showing off your arms or your legs or your abs. It does boost your metabolic rate. So you don't see it necessarily in the moment or at the time, but as your muscles get stronger over time, you actually burn more fat. You are literally increasing mitochondrial function. You are building stronger muscle cells or more muscle cells. You're making them stronger, and you're actually um, literally burning through fat and excreting it out of your body. So your body becomes smaller, your size becomes smaller, potentially the scale might drop. And a lot of women who do muscle strengthening, they get it, they understand this. Men potentially intuitively they might get this as well, but when you really explain to women, the more muscle strengthening exercises you do, you actually will get rid of a lot of the excess body fat that's taking up, for a lot of women, it tends to be the midsection in their abdominal region. And so integrating that with whatever other exercises, maybe it's a yoga class. And again, yoga can be muscle strengthening as well, and can be very stimulating yet calming at the same time. Or your hike. I mean, I love to hike and I love to walk in nature when the weather is beautiful. But that's not going to necessarily, just that alone is not going to get me the muscle strengthening metabolic results that I'm looking for. It's a beautiful thing to add into my lifestyle and my exercise practice throughout the week. So Yes, sometimes you can do things you love, but you also, if you really, really want results, and one of the most common symptoms I hear from my female clients is, I want to get rid of this extra 5, 10, 15 more. Sometimes it's more. I want to get rid of this extra weight that I've been carrying around for a really long time. It means you need to shift something. So whatever you have been doing, or rather have not been doing, maybe it's time to bring that into your life. But again, kind of going back to the hormone piece and bioidentical hormones, like, what is it that you love? And it could be something you used to love. It could be something that you just did 3 years ago. I just talked to a client recently, and she's like, I love my Peloton bike. I'm still paying for the membership. It's kind of sitting over in the corner, and there might be some laundry sitting on it, or whatever. It's being used as a storage unit, but I actually really love the Peloton. So if that's something you love, get back into that, or bring out your yoga mat. And so that is something that will address everything: your sleep, obviously your metabolism, your appetite. And kind of just a small side note, when you build your muscles and your muscles get stronger, your human growth hormone increases as well, and your testosterone boosts just a bit as well. And those two things can have an effect on your libido in a mild way. Yes, that has a lot to do with your body and your life and yourself and your partner. There's a lot of other factors there too. But all of this is connected, and exercise is probably one of those pieces that really does address a lot of things at the same time for women: blood sugar, cholesterol, a gut regularity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's definitely an essential piece that should be part of every woman's life. And it's not something that you can forego or compromise like maybe you did when you were younger. But yeah, I would say
Yeah, you're definitely speaking my language, because I think it's, again, all things go to me experimentation, trial and error, but you like literally just talk my language. Yoga mat, I mean, that's my best friend. Peloton, love it. I mean, I got into it during COVID. I had tried yoga years ago, and I was like, this is not for me. At that point in my life, I was just running too fast, too hard. And, pandemic came and I tried it, and I was like, oh, now I get that. Like, this is something I need. And literally till this day, if I sit on my mat, my body just knows it's
Mhm.
time to like come down. Um, Walking in nature, it's a beautiful thing. Grounding, being out in nature, just quiet, all of that resets a lot of things for you. And I really feel, if you're someone out there who doesn't have a movement practice, try on things, see how they feel. Remember, strength training isn't just to bulk up and look, like He-Man. It is actually really good for everything that Dr. Kristi just said, but also in your longevity, in your elderly years. Having a stable core, having those muscles is going to keep you from falling and breaking your hip. I mean, there's so much that I see now seeing my mom. It's like, oh, now I'm seeing a fast forward a little bit. So that's even more important to me now. So again, it's not just a quick fix for this moment. It actually is for a lot of years to come. So keep that in mind. Um, all great advice. I love it. But I have to touch on nutrition,
Mhm.
because nutrition gets such a bad rap sometimes, and all the different diets and fad things. And I'm definitely somebody who believes in a balanced lifestyle. I believe in whole foods. I'm not somebody who's going to ever prescribe or assign somebody a quick fix to drop 30 pounds. It's a process. You have to understand it took years to get where you are, and so it's not going to be. And if somebody gives you that quick fix, it may work temporarily, but if you're not shifting your lifestyle around that quick fix, it's not going to be sustainable long term. And so when we talk about whole foods in this space of midlife, people are scared of carbs, and they don't know what to do with the protein, and they don't even know what a whole food is and what are the ingredients. And so I would love to hear your take on a little bit of that.
Yeah. So with nutrition, I love to talk about it because it's universal. We have to eat to survive.
Yep.
And kind of going back to what I was mentioning earlier is like, I look back at all the foods I used to eat as a teenager and in
Yeah.
my 20s. I'm like, oh my goodness, how was I able to not become, over 300 pounds? And I think when I was late teens and 20s is when I really got into muscle strengthening. So I think that helped as well. And also youth,
Sure.
right? You have a lot
Sure.
of your
Youth.
reproductive hormones. Your metabolic rate is naturally higher. Um, Being somebody that has become sensitive to certain grains, like, gluten, grains like wheat and some of those things. I grew up eating that stuff. Looking back, did I have a sensitivity? I probably did. I didn't know it at the time. It wasn't until my late 20s, early 30s that I really, really started to cut that out. And whether it was a factor of society and the media or my training as a naturopathic doctor, I started realizing that as I cut that out, I felt better. So for
Hmm.
me, it started out simply based on symptoms. Yes, I did testing later as a client, and then also as a doctor. I did a lot of testing on myself, and I realized, aside from the testing, I know what foods work for me. And of course, I know a lot about metabolism and physiology and nutrition. And so I can help explain to people, when you eat these foods, yes, they might taste good in the moment, or they might be a comfort food, or it might be something your body is craving, whether good or bad, that may not be healthy for you, not just healthy in general, but or simply based on what the scale is going to show, but from a blood sugar perspective, from a thyroid perspective, endocrinology, from a perimenopausal perspective, or potentially maybe you have chronic joint pain, or you have migraine headaches, or you're having skin breakouts. A lot of my younger female clients in their late teens and 20s, a lot of them struggle with a lot of acne breakouts, cystic acne, regular acne. And so there's a lot of things that can not just affect our gut, and do I feel bloated? Do I feel constipated? Am I having looser stools? It can affect your skin. It can affect your joints. It can affect the inflammation throughout the body. It can affect as I just mentioned, the functioning of our endocrine system, our thyroid. But it can also exacerbate our female hormonal reproductive system. And a lot of women, I certainly didn't get this. I was somebody that back in my 20s, I had cystic acne. It was awful. I mean, it was well past puberty. I had already graduated from my undergrad, and here I'm having like major acne breakouts. And I didn't realize at the time, this is before I went back to school to become a naturopathic doctor, is that it was related to my diet. I was exercising, but I was eating a lot of dairy. I was eating a lot of gluten. I was eating a lot of sugar, and I was under a lot of stress.
Hmm.
And it was at that moment where a lot of women in their 20s go through this DHEA testosterone surge. That's not a bad thing, but it's biologically and reproductively, it's a perfect peak time for procreation. And so as testosterone and DHEA, which is another hormone that's secreted by the adrenals, it rises as a way to boost our libido and boost our metabolic rate, but then it can often lead to acne breakouts. And then you add in an unhealthy diet, unhealthy lifestyle, other types of, let's say you're smoking, you're using medications, recreational drugs, that makes it worse as well. Maybe not exercising. And that can, again, kind of create that perfect storm for skin breakouts. So nutrition today, yes, there are a lot of different fad diets and popular diets. It comes down to what works best for your body. And I know the ketogenic diet and the carnivore diet, those are very, very popular today, with increasing protein, increasing fat, cutting back on carbohydrates. And for some people, that works beautiful. It is actually what their body needs. It puts them into more of that ketosis state. They're able to drop the weight. They're able to burn through fat much easier. There's pros and cons, I think, to a lot of different diets, especially diets that contain a lot more protein and fat and restricted carbohydrates. I have seen a lot of women not do very well Again, it's how you do it. Just like you can
Mhm.
be a healthy vegetarian, a healthy vegan,
Mhm.
and you can be a not healthy vegetarian and vegan. And it's all based on what are the different macronutrients that you're getting, macronutrients meaning carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and then the micronutrients like the vitamins and minerals. And if you're eating foods that might help you lose weight, but you're constipated and you haven't had a bowel movement in 3 days, that's you're not going to feel that great. Um,
Right.
or if you're having too much of the, let's say, complex carbohydrates, like too much kale or broccoli, you're going to be, for some people, it's very difficult to digest. It's very difficult um, to process for a lot of people. So it's really kind of coming back to what is the diet that's going to nourish your body and it's going to get you the best, whatever results, whether it's weight loss, gut regularity, helping lower your blood sugar, helping bring down your LDL cholesterol, whether it's helping clear the inflammation or alleviate the inflammation in the diet. Um, I think it's best to kind of bring it back to what is going to help that person heal. I've seen vegetarians not be very healthy, and
Mhm.
I've seen people that do more the ketogenic diet experience really terrible reactions to that type of diet. And I've seen people that can eat grains and still be incredibly healthy and still burn through the fat and still eat rice or corn or quinoa or even certain grains that potentially contain gluten. So gluten isn't always necessarily bad for every single person. Just like some people can eat beef, some people can eat seafood, and it really kind of comes down to not only a personal preference, but also what is the diet that your body really, really loves. And we have, I don't know, 7, almost 8 billion people on this planet now. It really, I think a lot of times it can be based on where you live or maybe where your roots are, but also I think just from an ancestral um, perspective, there are certain people in certain regions. This is kind of another theory too, that their body does well. Their body does
Mhm.
well, maybe on more of a Mediterranean diet, or their body does well on soy, or their body does well on more citrus fruits, or their body does well on more protein and fat. And so, not just maybe where you're from, but where you're living currently. And also kind of the seasons. And like
Mhm.
right now, we're in wintertime. And so, comforting, warming root vegetables and soups and potentially maybe foods that have a little bit more grains for keeping us warm. So I know that was a very general answer,
No,
but
it's not general. I think it's great because again, it's giving people the understanding that one size doesn't fit everybody. And it is truly, and I feel for the people who don't get the results that Sally gets because they're thinking they're going to get it because she did, so why wouldn't I? And then they beat themselves up and they feel bad. And then it's like, well, no, because you're different. Like your body can't handle that. And as far as gluten goes, I know it gets a bad rap. If you're, from my understanding, from my knowledge, from my experience, when your gut is healed, when you are living and you have a good microbiome going on and you've got all, if you eat it here and there, your body can tolerate it. It is the people who do not have a really good microbiome and they might have leakage and they might have, because again, to my understanding and my research, it's not necessarily always the actual wheat. It's the glyphosate that's sprayed that people actually have reaction to. And, our lovely FDA, gives like, oh, this is acceptable level. But if you eat a bazillion, tons of it, that level goes up. And so you might be more sensitive to that. I will say for my daughters and I, dairy and wheat are just a no-go. My one daughter, she did have that cystic acne, and she fought it. She, because sometimes you have to go through the dip to get to the other side. And so when she realized, once she did the elimination diet and she got rid of those things and introduced one at a time, woo, I mean, it was very quick. And I mean, within a couple of days of each thing, she knew what works for her and what doesn't. And so I think that's really empowering though. I don't want people to think dread, I can't. It's like, no, try it, experiment. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, um, not food journaling to count every calorie, not food journaling so that, we feel restricted, but food journaling so that you can see, when I ate this meal, I felt amazing. And when I ate this meal, and I did not feel good, but this is also what I had going on around that meal. What was life like around then? And so I think getting curious and really, again, tuning into self and bringing awareness to things that are feel good to you and things that don't really give you a leg up when you're making those nutritional choices. If you are someone who doesn't know much about whole foods and healthy foods, just start by simply adding in a couple of vegetables. If you're not a lover of vegetables, like start adding things in, not necessarily like depriving yourself right off the bat by removing everything out. But truly, if you want healing, your body can do it if we give it half a chance and we actually work with it instead of against it. So I love your philosophy around nutrition because it isn't a one size fits all. But if you're someone who, doesn't really have a variety of fruits, vegetables, proteins in different ways, you've got to start experimenting, I think. That's what I'm hearing from you. And
Yeah. And you bring up a good point that, if your body used to be able to eat it, you would think that you can eat it for the rest of your life. Or conversely, maybe I think your body can change. And whether it's you need to heal the gut, you need to heal the stress, because we know stress can
yeah.
disrupt the gut microbiome. Hormone changes can, I just did an Instagram reel, hormone changes can actually disrupt the gut microbiome as well. And it also depends on the source of the foods, right? Because we know that foods grown a certain way organically, and the soil has everything to do with it, the climate, the fertilizer, if there's pesticides or not, or certain chemicals, that's going to determine how your body processes and digests the food. And like you just said, maybe one person might eat the same exact meal, the same exact food, but they're going to process it differently based on their biochemistry, based on their life, what's going on, their hormone levels, their gut microbiome. And so you can't compare the two, but keep in mind that potentially you might be able to have a piece of bread, or you might be able to have that ice cream cone, and not actually have a reaction. There's too many variables and there's too many factors to really say you can never, I do food sensitivity testing with my clients, and they're like, I can't have any eggs. I have eggs every single day. And it's like, well, maybe let's have you clear it out for a month and let's just see how your body feels. And when you bring it back in, maybe you'll find your body actually doesn't enjoy it. Or maybe you might find, oh, I actually liked how I felt going off of this particular food, whether it's eggs or almonds or dairy or gluten. It's really a chance for you to see, how does my body do without it and how does it do with it? And then that's not to say that you can't ever bring it back into your diet, because your body can change. And so it's not a lifestyle.
So I do want to say that to that though, what kind of eggs are you eating? What's the ingredients?
Yeah.
What are the chickens eating? So it's not that it's kind of like, if you're sensitive to a fruit, it's like, get off of it for a little bit. And maybe if you're doing conventional, try organic and see how does that work, or try a local farmer's market where how they're growing their what their growing practices are. So again, it just means your body with that particular food, the way that you're currently eating it isn't working. But that doesn't mean it's a death sentence, like you said. So for anybody listening, I mean, I can't imagine that you're not going to walk away from this episode at least taking one or two things and possibly going back and re-listening, because there was so many great takeaways. But Dr. Kristi has to get back to her daily stuff, and I'm going to definitely have you back on because I have so many more things to pick your brain about. But before we end, I love to ask each of my guests for a couple of non-negotiables, things that you have created over the years that allows you to have your best day, whether it's a practice or a product or whatever. So just something, a couple of things that you can't live without, because if you do, you're not going to, feel your best.
Yeah, great question again. going back to the exercise, for me, exercise is a non-negotiable game changer. It is the biggest stress reliever. It's my mental trainer. It's my physical trainer. It helps me not only become physically stronger, but it also helps me download ideas. And so it's
Mm,
kind of like this, it opens up this portal for me where I get like, I become creative when I exercise. So that's definitely helps me across many areas of my life. Another one would be, I'd say eating and nutrition, but that's something that for me that also helps me stay on top of my game physically and mentally. I'm going to add a third one in there too, and
sure.
it's meditation. And that's something that has been part of my life for just about 3 years, almost going on 3 years. I follow Dr. Joe Dispenza and other types of influential leaders as well. And that piece, most days, most mornings, has been life saving for me. Again, with stress, with my life and my physical health and my mental health, and also just going back to that creative piece. I'm able to get ideas and new insights that come to me when I'm in meditation. And that's something that I never thought I would do.
Mhm.
Um, because I was one of those people that said, I can't do that. I can't calm my mind, but actually you can. That's why they call it a meditation practice. And so with practice, that is something that has really calmed my nervous system and has allowed me to feel more grounded.
That's awesome. Have you heard of Kathy Heller?
Oh, I have actually one of my good friends, they actually just started a podcast and they follow her. And
Yeah,
yes.
she studies under Joe Dispenza. She goes to all his retreats, but I will say she is the first person to make me figure out that I could actually meditate. So I've been doing it for a couple of years.
Oh,
I'm a visual, I think what scares people off is it's like they try one type and they're like, I can't do this. And that was me like 10 years ago. I'm like, what are you crazy? I can't like calm down. Like my brain is like on fire all the time. But I will say, if you're not a meditator yet, I would say give it a try. It's really just about getting quiet and, don't have an expectation that your mind should just come to a complete halt because our mind is full of thoughts. That's our mind does what it's supposed to do, which is be full of thoughts and think all the time and, send little messengers and all that. So I love to hear that you get downloads while you're meditating. And that means you're having thoughts. It's not that you're
yeah.
laying there complete silence sleeping. It's you're actually allowing the space for those things to come in. That's
Yeah.
the way I view it. I view it as a way to get quiet enough that you're allowing what's supposed to come into your mind, the ability to do that. So again, just another great takeaway from today's episode. So thank you so much for coming on. I truly found this very enlightening and I loved chatting with you. And for everybody else, I can't wait to see you guys next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye. Hey, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed that episode. Some of the key takeaways I wanted to leave you with today is that we talked about the importance of individualized treatment and the use of bioidentical hormones in small doses for women going through perimenopause and menopause. Make sure that if you are diving into this chapter of your life, that you find a trusted source that you can rely on to do the correct testing and get the correct information before just taking a pill or taking a prescription of something without really knowing all the details. Kristi highlights the impact of stress on hormone health and recommends mind-body practices like meditation and exercise to manage our stress. Personalized nutrition is also key to optimal health. Non-negotiable practices for optimum health include exercise, nutrition, and meditation. She encourages us to find enjoyable forms of movement and emphasizes the importance of coping with stress for overall well-being. Resistance training boosts our metabolism and helps us fat burn in women who are in perimenopause and menopause. If you are in this stage of life, it is a very wild ride, but I hope that some of these tools and tips and her story, her discussion, her wisdom resonated with you in a way that you are able to walk away this week taking a 1% shift or more along your journey. So have a great rest of your week, and we will talk next week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode on healthy lifestyle habits for midlife mamas. I hope you found a 1% shift this week to move you forward on your wellness journey. Remember, small changes add up to big transformations. I want to hear what resonated with you. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and rate the show. Your feedback is truly the only way that I know that you're taking away 1% shifts, adding value to your journey. It is also a way for others to find the podcast. My dream is to empower others to create health and healing. And so I would love for this show to spread wide and far. To stay connected, please check out my Instagram and Facebook pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Join my newsletter and grab some freebies at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. And if you're looking to work one-on-one with a health coach, feel free to book a discovery call on my website as well. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you are allowing me on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen. Have a great day.